opportunity this year to think about a few folks that are in our district that actually have put a lot of conservation back into practice here in our district. And with all those things that they have been doing, and keeping all of the things in mind that it's what we're wanting to promote and to recognize folks for, we thought maybe it'd be a good idea to maybe give a little bit of a reward back to those that have been working so hard on putting conservation back into practice on their farms and ranches. So we did select a couple names. We have 2 awards to give. So I'm going to turn it over to Todd Philippi. He will give our first award, Resource Conservation Award.
Thanks, Scott. Like you said, the first award we're going to give out is the Resource Conservation Award. This award is being presented in recognition of this individual's dedication and efforts to conserve and better the soils, plants, trees, and wildlife of the district. This individual was born in Garden County and raised around Lisco. They graduated from Garden County High School and the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, and later received their master's degree in geology from the Colorado School of Mines. He served in the U.S. Army and worked for the U.S. Geological Survey in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Him and his wife returned to the Lisco area in 1990 to operate the family farm before retiring in 2008. While running the family farm, he was always one to try and conserve and protect his land while improving upon it to leave something better for the next generation. He's also a tireless promoter and advocate for the town of Lisco, and especially for the trees within it. The harsh conditions of the High Plains have not been kind to the trees of Lisco over the 100+ years of its existence, until this individual and some of the other folks decided to try and reverse that course. They began by working with the NRD to plant a windbreak to block both the train noise and the harsh northwest winds that kicked up sand and dust as it rose through the sand hills towards their little town. Next, they turned their focus back to the trees in town, and using Nebraska Forest Service programs like Retree and Free Trees for Fall began replacing their dead and dying canopy in town. This individual, even getting up in his 80s, was always front and center leading the charge by not only lining things up, but by doing the physical planning and groundwork to make sure it got done and the trees taken care of after the fact. He's a true community advocate on all fronts, especially when it comes to trees. He's not only a leader through his words, but a leader by show of action. It has been a pleasure to get to work with him. It is my honor and pleasure to grant this award to Don Award. Unfortunately, he was not able to make it today, so we'll give his award to him, but if you see him, congratulate him. Thanks.
The North Platte Natural Resource District is honored to present this conservation award to Frank Lasetto for his long-term continuing efforts in supporting and improving the protection and preservation of our natural resources and the environment. Frank has knowingly implemented cutting-edge technology in his practices, directly contributing to the betterment of our natural resources for the future generations. Some of Frank's practices include crop rotations, grid sampling, the producing fields, testing the water in his wells, applying a prescription fertilizer, and split application and denozzling his pivots to match soil type and cation exchange capacity. These best management practices are the focus of Frank's operation, as he recognizes the importance of how they have improved his water use and efficiencies in providing appropriate nutrients to yield the best crop. Frank is an exemplar for the practices he uses in his normal operations and has proven himself to be a resource for integration and advancements in the agricultural industry. Frank has provided information and demonstrations to the NRD staff numerous times on some technology he has incorporated, allowing for others to better understand the benefits of applying these best management practices. On behalf of the North Platte NRD staff and board, we thank Mr. Lasetto for his commitment, dedication, and contributions to the future of agriculture industry in the Panhandle of Nebraska. Frank, would you please come up? I'll read the plaque. We did a plaque because I guess the plaque we ordered is in Missouri. So we put Placeto is hereby recognized for his long-term continuing efforts in supporting and improving the protection and preserving of our natural resources and the environment, and for being an exemplar and resource for integration and advancements in the agricultural industry. Here we go.
Okay, the fun part here. We are going to award the $300 gift cards to the contest winners, and I'll read the names of those that happen to get the correct answer. And if you wouldn't mind coming up to receive your award and a picture, that'd be great. We have 10 names here in front of us, and I'm sorry if I misplace your name. I don't intend to do that. So, Jeremy Maxey, winner number 1. Carly Nichols. Brett Meyer. Justin Wright. Eli Garza. Eric Peterson. Dan Kosmaka. Don Wright. Joshua Konigshoff. And Lance Magnuson. Please help me congratulate our winners. Okay, we're going to now move on to our producer panel. If those of you that are on the panel, if you wouldn't mind cutting up and finding a seat on the stage, we'll get started with the producer panel part of this presentation. So Craig Sitzman, Nicholas Lapsodas, and PJ.
I'm just glad they heard me because I kind of was like, hey. I don't want to use them.
I'm going to make a few introductions on our panelists today. They're going to each give a little bit of a background on what they've been doing in conservation and nutrient management. First person I have on my list is Craig Sitzman. Grew up farming on the Front Range near Eaton in Weld County, Colorado. He graduated from Colorado State University with a bachelor's degree in soil and crop sciences in 2012. He's a first-generation landowner, purchasing his first farm southwest of Eaton in his early 20s. Craig relocated to Scottsville County 6 years ago, purchasing a farm north of Minnetonka. His operation today consists of growing grain and forage crops, plus raising Dorper hair sheep. Along with farming, Craig is an independent sales rep for Big Iron Auctions, serving Scottsville, Box Butte, and Wall counties in Canada. Craig is passionate about serving the ag industry and promoting practices and ideas that maintain strong producer margins. Nicholas Lapsodas is a fourth-generation farmer in Bridgeport. His family beef and farming operation. He graduated from Bridgeport High School in 2011 and returned home in 2014. After going to school to join the family operation full-time, he works alongside his dad, Nick, on the farming side of the operation, while his uncle and cousin handle the cattle side of the business. They grow corn, sugar beets, alfalfa, wheat, rye, and have 2 feedlots. BJ Hain is a certified crop advisor that has worked for Simplot Grower Solutions since 2008. He was an Agricultural Retailer Association Rising Star Award recipient. He previously served on the board of Nebraska Water Balance Alliance. He has grown awareness and use of precision agriculture in the area. He operates a small farming operation consisting of sugar beets, wheat, and corn. He resides in Mitchell, Nebraska with his wife, Michelle, and 3 children. He enjoys camping, coaching, and watching his children participate in multiple activities. I'm going to just turn this over to Craig as soon as I grab the microphone, wherever it went to. And I'll let these guys talk a little bit about what's going on in their operations.
So I'm Gering Civic Center. A lot of you kind of know me as just the big iron guy, but for those of you who don't know, I do own a farm, I live in Minnesota, and I am not a native of the Panhandle. Come out of Elk County. I grew up farming there, 3rd generation farmer, but I was 1st generation farmer. My dad and grandpa were sharecroppers. So I worked to buy a piece down there, and I always envisioned leaving because I knew I didn't have enough money to stay down there with those people or the regulations used. So I came up here, and I looked around a long time before I relocated. So what drew me to this area was the way you guys manage your water, and it's a valuable asset. And that's why I came here. I like the mindset here. So I purchased my home up here from Scott. And so talking to him a couple of years ago, he goes, we might have some problems with nitrates getting into our water. And the farm I purchased from him has well water, groundwater on it. And I said, man, I looked at it as an opportunity, because obviously you can direct that pretty easy. You can, we're pumping up water, and I thought, man, I really want to get my well tested to see where I'm at. And so we put together a study. We did several ground probes, and it was a 2-year study. And it turns out the water on our test on my well was 5 parts per million, so we were under the limit. But we went ahead for 2 years. I drew a drop, and I fertilized as I normally would have. I put on full rates on corn, and then I had forage crops. We did forage barley and sorghum. And the one thing I did, though, was I did split ply, which I had started probably I think 2 years. It's a year after I came up here, I started split ply. And where I came from down there, nitrates were never talked about. The soil was heavier, so this was a new environment for me to be in. So I was happy to participate in this, and we learned a lot from it. And like I say, I'm all about, I don't want anybody coming in here telling us what to do. I hate that. I hate people telling me what to do. But I think we can manage this resource the best. But we need to show that we can do that and do it ourselves. And I think we can definitely accomplish that. So, like I said, it's my goal, and along the way to maintain our margins. So, after listening to Brian speak today, I think we have opportunity to improve our margins on fertility. And when your guys' margins are positive, in the green, my job's a lot easier. So I'm all
Chris, I have one question for you. You said you bought Scott's farm and then he told you you guys have a nitrate issue. I like how he sold you the farm first and then told you.
Right.
My name's Nicholas Lapsotis, like it's in the intro, I'm a 4th generation farmer, Bridgeport. Scott reached out to me and asked if I'd sit on this producer panel. I said, yeah, sure, I don't know what you want me to talk about. He said, I don't really know either. I guess people will probably just ask me questions. Pete sits on the board for the NRD. One afternoon, him and I went up and met with Scott and a handful of other people, kind of talking about the nitrate issue. Trying to come up with, I wasn't really involved in this part, but as a whole, the NRD has been trying to come up with kind of a solution on what all producers can kind of be doing to help fix this problem. And we're already soil sampling, water sampling, doing a lot of samples that we're required to do through the feedlots and the DEQ. So I went up with Pete, we sat down for probably 2 hours and kind of just ran through what we're already doing. And I suppose that's probably why Scott asked me to sit on this. Exactly. So kind of a little bit of background. I guess one thing in particular that we discussed kind of in depth is our composting program that we do. And I know that was kind of touched on a little bit today, using manure and compost to kind of help with the soil health. And I just think there's a lot of opportunity with composting. For us, we take all the manure from our 2 feedlots, we row it out, we turn it about 5 to 7 times depending on how hot we can get it. But I think there's a lot of opportunity with compost and building the organic matter, just the soil health overall. So I'm just going to keep it kind of brief right now and see if you guys have any questions for me. So I'll turn it over to PJ.
PJ, Mitchell, Nebraska. I work in Scotts Bluff here for Symposium. I think Scott wanted me, he knew you guys could throw apples. He said we have a nitrogen problem. We should talk to the nitrogen dealer in the area, maybe. But work with Scott as well. He invited me up for, they put a council together on these nitrates and that. And obviously living here, my kids live here, they live with your children. You guys coach my children, you serve on school boards. It's very important to be part of the community. I want to see this happen for a long time, right? So I'm very vested. When we moved to Mitchell, it was recommended we put a reverse osmosis system in our house. And that was a little eye-opening, right? Because we don't want to, that's our most valuable resource out here, right? I'm an import as well from Minnesota. And that's boring up there. It's corn, soybean country. I love it out here. We have all these different cropping systems, very vibrant agricultural community. We have to protect our #1 resource out here, right? That was a great guest you had today. That's not the first time I've listened to him. I really enjoy him. Some things to expand on. That's a tough thing he does with all around the country. With different soil types, cropping, but he does such a good job. Some big things I've taken away from him in the past, CEC, that's a big thing. So if you guys do those calculations, it'll save you a lot of phosphorus, especially. Base saturation of K, we've gone round and round about this. You know, Dave Hergert always said you never need to use potassium, but we've always seen lots of curling, flaring on the leaves, things of that nature. Once I started going up at his rule of thumb of less than 4% base saturation, that's really moved the needle. So if you do have a base saturation less than 4%, you will get an ROI applying potassium. Sodic soils, that's a big thing out here, especially if guys are south of the river, you know, Lyman, places like that. All the things that he said really moved the needle. Another thing that I got wrong, but it's worked really well, I had to eat some crow with some friends. The cinders from Western Sugar. So that heavy ground, the sodic soils, that's doing a great job mitigating that. We had some rough ground, and it is moving the needle pretty good. So put that in your notes. Careful with the cinders on real sandy ground, and it also has some effect on some herbicides. But Other than that, very big net positive. Seed populations out in our soils. I used to do it with yield, 2 seeds per, so 1,000. So I used to correlate yield to seed population. I changed this about 4 or 5 years ago. Started looking at, I could keep my same yield goals on lighter soils. I just dropped back my population. So if you guys are farming, and you guys see this, right? You guys grow phenomenal corn of, 7 seed soil. We see this all the time. So I put a formula in there. So 7 seed, I'll drop 26, 28,000. I get up into the 20s, 22s, then I'm going to 36. So and that's really done a great job. So we go into those zones that are soil or real sandy. We don't lose our yield goals. We're still hitting. Humic acids, I agree 100% with him. It's so frustrating. We have a hard time with suppliers. Different people will have a good one, and then we'll lose our relationship with them. We'll get a new product in, and we just don't like it. So at the time, like currently right now, I'm not even recommending humic acid because I'm so frustrated with our suppliers. We've changed to other fulvic acids, things of that nature. I will say in closing in my notes, when I started as a crop advisor back 2010, 09, 08, 200 bushel corn, we were putting on 240 pounds a hen. 200 bushel corn now, we're putting on 160 pounds a hen. So, to his point, yeah, every bushel needs that, but you guys have done such a good job and got so much better and so much more efficient. It's neat to see. Obviously, the yields have done this, and then our nitrogen use has done this. So it's neat.
You've heard a little bit from all of our panelists what their operation consists of and what they're doing. So now's your opportunity to ask any questions you have of any of these panelists. If you'd like to send in any questions through the email system, the text system, you can do that, and I'll ask that question for you. But other than that, I'll look for questions. One question I do have for PJ. PJ, I think you've been part of the NRCS nutrient management programs and equipment. What has been your most benefit of being part of that program?
For me personally, it's very valuable to me to be farming as well. So then I can go into the NRCS, I can see what you guys have to go through with all these programs, all the boxes you have to check, all the paperwork you have to do. So it's nice on my end as a retailer. So we just set up our entire program so that you guys it just checks all those boxes for you. So Calvin, guys from the NRCS, say, PJ, I need all this guy's information. Go run them over a big report with all the paperwork, everything else, and it checks all them boxes. That's been a big thing. With the technology, the variable rate programs, zone sampling, moisture probes, all those things, they're all in compliance with their programs. And it's really important to us to make that as seamless as possible because we know how valuable it is to your operation at the end of the day too. So.
Nicholas, I know that you guys have incorporated soil sampling and you're heavily involved with fumigation and have been in the past, but you're kind of making some transitions to using more and more compost to grow more. Can you expand a little bit more on that? Talk a little bit about how much you're saving on not having to go with the commercial nitrogen versus what you're doing now. Is it massive? Is it little? How does that look at your operation?
For our operation, we've been composting for probably about 20 years. The reason for that is we used to spread just wet manure from our one feedlot close to town there. We were starting to get pretty high levels right around the feedlot, so our alternative was let's compost it, we can haul it away to our further farms, spread it out a little bit more. About 8 years ago, we kind of got tied up with a guy who taught us a lot more about it, as far as more of the science behind it, some of the opportunities of adding other products to it, making it more of a true fertilizer product as opposed to just a, manure product. Kind of what we've seen on the economic side, or just some notes that I've jotted down here. The rule of thumb, I'm not even sure who told us this a long time ago, it might not be true, it might be 1 ton of compost is equal to about 4 tons of wet manure. So for us, we're spreading a lot of our fields anywhere from 2 to 5 ton per acre. So pretty low rates when you consider, a lot of people are spreading 20 ton on raw manure. So for us, in our program, when we got tied up with this guy, he was kind of telling us, if you spread all of your acres with this compost, these different products in, year 1, you're going to get about 35% of the value of the compost sample for the nitrogen, and then about 65% of the phos value. And then about year 3, if you continue to do it year after year, he was telling us you'll get the full 100% value of your compost sample and repeat. So if you start figuring that up, if your compost sample is showing you got 10 pounds per 1 ton of compost, 1 year you're going to have 3.5 pounds per ton. Year 3, you're going to have your full 10 pounds per ton. So that adds up year after year, and you can really start factoring in and start cutting back on your commercial end, which I'm sure PJ loves to hear. So for us, we've never gone to the full. This guy also told us we can go up to about 30% reduction in our commercial fertilizer, which is a huge, cost savings. We've never had the bravery to go quite that high with it, but we have probably been up somewhere around 20 to 25% reduction in our commercial and phos as well. So it really is a true savings, but it's not a short-term deal where you can go spread it 1 year and see the full value. It's one of those, it's a marathon, not a sprint. So having these dry years on the droughts where the feedlots are dry, you're not pulling a lot of manure out of the pens. You got to really save up on your wet years and kind of stockpile. But it's a ever-changing target, and I think it's valuable, and you can sure cut back on your commercial if you keep doing it long enough.
So this year was a great example of, it's so hard to build with commercial fertilizer, right? So the other way you can treat that, don't break away from your whole program. If you want to cut and do that as well, but boy, when you have the heat and everything goes right, that really gives you topside potential as well. So as you're building those with manure, compost, or those things, boy, that's fun when everything clicks and you have that top end, because you guys know as well as anybody what your success rate is what you're shooting for and what you're getting. But boy, when you can sure tap into that savings and let it rip, those are fun years. So.
Nicholas, I got a question come in. Why, in your opinion, are more feedlots not moving compost and away from raw manure?
Just from personal experience, it's a lot of work. For us, we turn it up to about 7 times, and that's once a week. So from a raw product to a finished product, you're looking at 2 months. And the ideal time to be doing it is in the middle of the summer. I don't know about you guys, but I don't have time in the middle of the summer to be giving the compost the time it deserves and making it. So I think a lot of it is a labor issue, just very time consuming. So if you have the people to dedicate the time to dedicate to it, I think it's well worth it. But I would say, just like everything else, it's a labor issue right now.
Craig, I got one for you. You've been incorporating more and more cover crops. What kind of cover crops have you been working with? What's your experience?
Kind of a little bit of everything. I did start out with rye. I actually used just winter wheat 1 year for a cover. I felt like the winter wheat was a little less aggressive in the spring. We talked about water, which I think that is a concern in the spring. If you get a dry spring with rye and you don't have groundwater, to catch up. But I thought that was good when I did. The other thing I experienced
close. Our goal is to get it up to about 160 degrees, and that temperature is kind of the perfect mixture to sterilize all those weed seeds. So that is one advantage as well. We do heat it up as hot as we can get it. You know, this time of year it's kind of hard to get it to that 160. We usually get it around 145 this time of year, which definitely isn't hurting anything. You know, it might not be getting all the weed seeds, but I think it definitely helps as opposed to the raw manure coming out. Whatever's in there is in there. So I think that definitely does help to an extent.
PJ, you being on the ag retail fertilizer side of things, what, in your opinion, what can the ag retail industry and the NRDs do to help our actual situation? What can we work on together?
I think us as an organization, we've invested heavily into precision ag. We have employees that are dedicated to that. We spend a lot of money on equipment, the moisture probes, all this technology and equipment. We have a pretty heavy investment into that, right? I think that's pretty heavy correlation there, and the synergy. So I mean, we're completely on board, right? Yeah, going forward, I guess, no, we just need to bridge the growers. You know, we're all on board, and you guys are obviously on board, so.
As a follow-up, PJ, is there something that the North Platte NRD can do to either through cost share programs or other types of maybe federal programs that could be helpful in helping achieve the goal with the retail fertilizer industry as well? I mean, is there anything that we can do?
Yeah, absolutely. In correlation with the NRCS that you touched on earlier, there's so many cost share programs that are available to guys. It really takes a lot of this cost is mitigated through those things. Yeah, absolutely. And because it is, a lot of guys a lot of operations are scared to take that investment to that next level on a lot of this equipment. And I completely understand that. But we have a lot of these vendors have cost share programs on equipment. This infertile stuff he was talking about earlier, there's a lot of programs available for those to be subsidized by them. There is a lot of stuff available. And like I said, don't be too intimidated. Everybody's willing to help navigate through all those things. So.
I got a question that come in for all three of you. So, if you wouldn't mind answering the question that has been posed is, on average, how many pounds of nitrogen per bushel are you using to grow a corn crop? Please include anything coming from manure or compost applications as well.
Really just starting to get into those heavy right now. The way I do it, we take the soil samples, grower comes in, we'll take the zone samples. My recommendation is 0.84 pounds of N per bushel is in my formula. That's what I use. Depending on the nitrate levels in the soil, I'll credit it differently. So if you're lower than 60 pounds in the soil, I'll only credit 35% of that, just because I get nervous about dropping too low. But if your nitrates are high, then I'll bump that credit quite a bit up, all the way up to 65%. Anyways, we'll go through those recs, we'll get the yield data in, we'll compare yield goals to what we actually did through yield data and actual yields. Right now, a lot of times we'll see them come in anywhere from 0.6, but if we had a hail or other problems, it can be 1.2, 1.3. And that's with the soil nitrogen as well as what we apply. That's what we're seeing on average. That's a broad range, but 0.84, 0.86 is my target.
Yeah, I would say we're probably a little bit closer to 1, maybe just a hair under that. And that's including, like you said, go through all the soil samples, see what's in there. We have a formula that factors in kind of the value of our compost. Can't really tell you what that is off the top of my head. It's an Excel formulation, probably too complicated for me to really explain. But overall, short answer, I'd say we're probably between that 0.9 to 1.
Mine's a little bit tougher, but I would say, you know, one pound for corn. My corn crop that was in the study was actually silage. So there was a yield, we had a crop adjuster out to adjust those yields. I think, the first year it was 220 and the next, it was right, it was a little bit higher. Now, that being said, we had probes that NRD provided and they were literally a 4-foot, Scott.
Yeah.
And so in that 2-year study, we were able to see if we were losing anything, you know, and how deep it was going. We, I think, only lost some in one spot that went down below a foot. And then, you know, after the day, listening to Brian on some of those spots, and again, we had different zones set up. It definitely wasn't, they weren't 5-acre zones. We went more by soil type. But in some cases, I probably wasn't leaving enough residual for the next year because following with Sudan's work really pulled out what was there. And so, you know, for a lot of what I did, it would have been, I'd like, I guess, tonnage versus instead of bushels to do those calculations, which I'm sure can be obtained through NRD.
Well, I know, Craig, that you talked about cover crops. What about you, Nicholas, or PG? Have you guys done a lot of experimenting with those as well?
We haven't really done a lot of experimenting. We are kind of like, I would say, majority of the people, we do a lot of ride because it's convenient. But we have talked a lot about it in the last year or two, really getting more scientific on it, seeing what would be more beneficial as far as pulling, you know, the nitrates out of the ground. And just, I think we're trying to put more emphasis on fixing our soil. We're just kind of at the beginning stages of it though, so pretty much just rye at this point.
Personally, behind the sugar beets, I'll put wheat in. My favorite cover crop overall is rye, in general. Just an aggressive root system, cold tolerant, greens up fast in the spring, so I don't have to worry about wind erosion, things of that nature.
Any questions out in the audience? Refresh if there's anything. I guess one question that come from the NRD side of this topics that we've been talking about today. As you think about the water quality that we have right now going on, some of the samples that we pulled, you've seen the map that Brian showed. We also probably got a chance to look at the map that was out in the lobby. We do have a bit of a concern with nitrates in groundwater. What do you all think the NRD should be doing to mitigate those nitrate levels in groundwater? Should there be more regulation? Should it be more on the voluntary side? Should there be more education? Should there be more programs? Should there be more cost share? What are you thinking that maybe we could be doing as the NRD to try to mitigate those issues where we have too much nitrate in groundwater? We do have a responsibility statutorily, so I guess keep that in mind as well. So I'd love to hear your answers. Hate to put you on the spot.
Well, I guess it's so basically it's a carrot and the stick situation, right? So if we're not going to be chewing on this carrot, the stick's coming. I will say personally, the Pumpkin Creek situation was, that was quite a bit of education for me, and boy, I learned a lot. That's what drove me to gravitate towards technology and that side of agriculture, right? When those restrictions came out, we thought that was the end of the world. And what we learned was, our crop rotations were better, our yields got better, and our profitability got better. So, I don't know, there's a kind of a Y in the road here, so Scott, I love what you're doing here, and you're really trying to put the carrot out in front of all of us, but, yeah.
Well, you were asking, more regulation, leave it voluntary, stuff like that. I'm sure everyone in this room is the same way. No one likes to be told what to do. So I think regulation is a delicate subject, but at the same time, leaving it completely voluntary, there's obviously an issue for a reason. So, like you said, it's kind of a carrot on a stick type deal. But to me, I think the most important thing that every producer should be paying attention to is your soil samples. If you don't know what's in your soil, then how can you fertilize for your crop for the year? So I don't know, like I said, I don't want to use the word require or anything like that because I know people don't like that. But I think the soil sampling and education that you're doing here today is probably the best first step that you can possibly be doing. So I think you guys are on the right track right now.
Yeah, and like saying I don't want this to be a forced issue. I don't like things we're going to be, but I think we need to view it as an opportunity. I think NRD should present it as an opportunity. And just like these sheets you guys filled out and run here, everybody who has a groundwater well or wells, I would ask for a test from NRD to see where you stand on your nitrate, because there's an opportunity there. It didn't take that long to fill that out, to see, if you do have a nitrate problem, that's over 10 parts per million, well, there's an opportunity there to spend less money on your nitrogen fertilizer. And I would take it and do it before they do tell you what to do, because it doesn't, like say, $1 per hour, how long did it take you to fill that out, and figure that out. And I think if NRD can maybe, send those out, and I don't know how much it costs to do nitrate tests, but I think and when I started this study, I'll be honest, we were going into 21, and it was super dry, and we come off several years of tight margins. I'm like, God, if there's a bunch of nitrogen down there, I'm going to run the crap out of my pump and save on fertilizer. So view it as an opportunity, and like say, otherwise, we need to show the world that we are using our resources properly. And if we do that, something as simple as this, sending out these, you fill out a sheet on each field, have your soil samples. We're proactive, so when they do come knocking and ask, hey, what are you guys doing? We have an answer. And the other thing I wanted to talk about, I think we've been on the right track for several years now. Some of these issues that we have with nitrate water might not be our fault. They might go back to the 90s and 80s. Was that necessarily our fault? That's how guys do things. But we have the opportunity to correct it and to save time doing it. So I think that's how that's be pursued. Because again, at the end of the day, margin is important. And going forward right now, looking at markets, we better be margin on markets.
The price for water samples is about $7.50. And if you're interested in taking those samples on your own wells or private even domestic wells, range livestock wells, comes in usually every week or two. So if you have something that you would like to have tested, please come and get a test kit for us. We'll sure get something sent to the lab and have some analysis of those. I do have one comment that just came in. It says, just a comment, but I think this meeting is exactly the direction the NRD needs to go to get better education to producers. And I couldn't agree more. I think these guys kind of agree with the same thing. We need to continue to visit with each other. We need to network with each other. We need to talk about these things. We can't hide these under the covers anymore. We need to continue to be proactive and and just like Craig said, to show the world or to show the residents of the state that we care about our groundwater. So I'm going to give another chance for anyone in the audience. I've got a question over here.
Craig, I know you incorporated livestock in your cover crop system. Maybe you could talk about, another way that's generating a different income stream for you and maybe some benefits you've been able to see from that.
Yeah, so, like I say, we raise sheep, and I don't hold that against me. Of course, Scott's got some sheep guy too, so. But the more you can, like I say, I like running those guys out on the field. I really don't like feeding up a bunk, except to finish. The less I can stay away from the bunk, the better. So the more grazing days I can get out there. And obviously, there's less manure to haul, so that's a cost savings. And something, and this might be an NRD idea, and it's from a guy that, like I said, it's not from here, and it's kind of a out of the box idea. But Brian talked about it this morning about nutrient deficiencies. So if you have a nutrient deficiency in an animal, most likely it leads back to your soil. Now, there's a guy, and he likes to say he's not from here, he's from Missouri. So he does a cafeteria-style mineral program. Again, this is for breeding animals, so we think maybe they're a little bit smarter, they live longer, they know what they need. So they'll set out a box, right? And all the minerals are separate, and they're labeled, magnesium and zinc, copper. So he went to this on both cattle and sheep, and he claims that, okay, the animals know what they're missing. They'll go out, they'll go to that box, pull their mineral. Well, and his theory is over time, right there, and this is on the grazing system, it's going to apply it out to your soil. So ultimately, they're applying the right nutrients to your ground. So I have some out of the box ideas with that I have not pursued on my own operation, but I'd love to. So, but there's definitely a cost savings with livestock. That most definitely, not just cost, but probably better lifestyle overall. So, a lot less chores.
Any other questions from the audience? I guess what I would maybe ask you guys, if you had any final comments, any final thoughts that you'd like to leave with the group that we haven't maybe talked about. Okay. Oh, wait, we got one right there.
How do you handle that conversation of cutting back and giving growers the confidence to not lose the deal?
It's
How
gone.
do you give them that confidence? To cut back and not sacrifice?
Yeah, Brian had a comment earlier about all the data, and so that's a big deal. So so I'm going to go through about 1,500 soil samples on average in the winter and going into the spring, and all those acres, I'm bringing a lot. I'm probably 8,000-9,000 acres worth of yield data tested back to all these formulas, right? And it does give you a lot of confidence, right? So when I have to tell them, as we started trimming these, right, guys there was a lot of reservations about it, because nobody wants to leave anything on the table and have any wrecks, but a lot of times with the technology, you turn the script off, put the rate on that you want, and we'll go out and combine it, and they can check me all the time. That was a huge thing on the seed populations, right? And guys were calling me and some colorful conversations when they were going through the field and they're only putting on 28,000, 27,000, and I said, we'll just do it, turn the script off, we'll go through the yield data, right? Every time. So we're sticking with those formulas now, so. It was a lot harder 5, 6, 7 years ago than it is today, because those things kind of just turn into standard practice. Anyways, but that's where the confidence comes from.
Other questions?
Moisture probes, that's another one. A lot of confidence around them. We have 150, 180 of them out in the country every year. And they do have some shortcomings, right? They can wash out, sensors can get broke, other things, but those things can be identified. So my rule of thumb on moisture probes is the first year, nobody trusts them. They said, I'm not, whatever, PJ, that's a bunch of garbage. And then the second year, all right, I'm gonna pay attention to these, but I still don't trust you. And then by year 3, 4, it's really hard to manage irrigation without them. It becomes that valuable a tool on an overall general speaking. That's how that kind of works too. That one's been, those types of things get a little harder too. So, but that's the progression of a lot of this stuff.
PJ, do any of those probes, are they detecting nitrate migration, or is it just strictly water sensors for water moving through the soil?
No, they're just strictly water. Yeah. I've heard about the nitrate sensing and that, but we want to get really, really good at water before we put another variable in it.
Any other questions for our panel? Well, I don't see anything, so other than any other thoughts? None? Okay. Well, I just wanted to take an opportunity today to bring some producers up here that are actually doing a few things out there, incorporated some of those conservation practices, and let you hear from them out of their own mouth how things have been working on their own operation. I think we definitely have folks out there that are looking at these issues and are trying to be more proactive with those as they incorporate them into their own operation and trying to make a better place for all of us. So if you wouldn't mind thanking these producers this afternoon.